Woof, woof, said the dog. Hello and welcome to another English podcast with Paul. I'm your host, Paul, and as always, unscripted, unedited. Here for you, English pronunciation. Okay, and today we're talking about dog communication. I'm not reading a story about dogs. Okay, dog communication, canine communication. Where does it all start? So it all starts with respect between you and your dog, which may sound counterintuitive because most people think that a dog is a creature that should do as it's told and do as it's instructed, and it is just a creature there for your benefit. But that's not just the case. This creature can be an interesting and integral part of a family. But as that family, it needs to have respect and trust. So let's dive in. What have we got? As I said before, I've got some notes to try and sound a bit more professional. But we're not. We're not here, are we? We're just natural and native and normal conversation. Right, okay, so respect comes from boundaries, consistency, safety, and leadership. Okay. Right, let's dive into that a little bit. Boundaries. I've talked about boundaries before, and also the same with children. Boundaries are really what shows the respect to the animal that you have for yourself. My boundaries are you do not jump up on me. My boundaries are you don't nibble my ankles or you nibble my hand. That's one of my boundaries. My boundaries might be you do not get on the bed. Things like this. And there's a reason for why it's not good to allow dogs to be perched higher than the floor, especially on your bed or on your sofa or on the top of your sofa, is because in the DNA of a dog is the DNA of a wolf. And that wolf has superiority when it's raised higher than the other wolves. So if a dog wanting to get higher than you, then it may perceive that it's higher in the pack than you, the hierarchy. So it's never a good idea to allow a dog to be higher than you. If you're playing on the floor, then just be aware that the dog may try to assert dominance on you. So, boundaries. I have boundaries. You have boundaries. And we need to ensure that the dog knows our boundaries also. All right. Consistency. Now, this is really, really hard when you're having a bad day, when you're tired, when you've got children screaming and you're trying to get jobs done. It's very, very hard to maintain consistency because we are human. I accept that. But as much as possible, if you can keep to consistency with your dog then will be able to trust that you are consistent and that he will or she will know what your response is going to be. So if you say no begging at the dinner table, and that is a boundary that you enforce, then the dog will learn that very quickly and will rarely try to push against that boundary. Okay, so consistency. Safety. Now this seems a bit of an odd thing to say, but a dog also needs to feel safe. So for example, if somebody's coming into your home and starts hitting the dog needs to know that you're going to protect them from other people. And likewise, when you're out on a walk, should another dog attack your dog, you being there and being calm and sensible and removing the dog from the other dog without physically getting involved, but preferably to walk your dog away if it's on the lead. If not, then that is a dangerous situation to be in. But your dog needs to feel safe and that you're going to protect that dog. Okay, so that is a big thing. And then finally, leadership. The dog needs to understand leadership. So it may seem very, very silly and childish, but the leader of the pack should go in through the door first. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or a child. The leader of the pack should go in the door first, through the gate first, have their food first, everything first, and be higher, preferably, right, than the dog. So that leadership comes from entering somewhere new first. And it's the same with that house, like upstairs, or going it like any threshold. It should be the pack leader first, then the second, then the third, and then wherever you choose the dog to be in that pecking order. Although you try to put this hierarchy in place, and without consistency, the dog will try to assume that the dog is more the leader. Same when you go on for a walk. We'll get into it in a moment, but there's two different types of walk. And if you're walking with a short lead, maybe going along a high street, if your dog is in front of you pulling, then the dog is telling you he's the leader or she is the leader. They are in control, they are in front. And that's something you don't want. So leadership is paramount. Even with something like ownership of the dog bowl. That bowl belongs to you until you decide it's not. And you should be able to pick it up and take it away at any time. I don't recommend this if you're not confident with dogs or you don't know the dog. If it's your own dog, then you should be able to pick it up, especially if the idea that children may be around. You don't want the danger of a child being hurt because the dog's eating his dinner. So that's something that the leader and the responsible adults in the pack, in the house, should take responsibility for. There's another story there, but we'll come back to that. Okay, so there are many, many tricks and behaviors and things you can teach a dog. Dogs are very susceptible to learning and they're very susceptible to motivation. Often dogs are motivated by a squeaky toy or food. That is generally the two main ones. If your dog is not motivated by either, then you're going to have to find another way to motivate that dog. And often it's because they want to be with you, the guardian. So find a way to find something to motivate the dog. Once you can do that, you can focus on the more important behaviors that you want to teach first. Whether it's not jumping up or not running out the door when you open it, the front door, or not pulling on the lead, or whatever else you choose. It's down to you to choose which behaviors to work on first and to work on them preferably using motivation through squeaky toy, food, and learning the best way to work with your dog and train your dog. There are many, many videos on training your dog, but personally, I'm going to say it, personally, my favorite and I believe the best authentic training is Cesar Millan. Now, I'm not a paid sponsor, I don't know the guy, but it is the most natural and obvious way to react with a dog. If you just watch some of the TV shows, you may like it, you may not. Like I said, there are many, many other dog trainers out there. Okay. So like I said, you should never get angry with the dog. You should never get angry with the dog. Unless the dog is attacking you or your family member, there should be no reason to be angry with the dog. So always better to use positive reinforcement. The dog will learn quicker and happier with positive reinforcement. All right? It doesn't have to be food all the time. You can wean the dog off of the treat and give the dog praise instead. Lots of cuddles and shaking of the head and eye contact. Okay. Play fighting. So not everybody wants to play fight with their dog. It's often young men that like to play fight with their dog because of I don't know, connection, friendship, or whatever reason. But you have to be very careful that the dog knows when it's time to play, when it's not time to play. Now, often you'll see a dog wanting to play with another dog. They put their paws out quite wide and they'll do like a little bow. And that is normally a signal of let's play. I mean, obviously you can use that and play with your dog and have fun. Just remember that you teach the dog when you're stopping and when enough is enough. Okay, because the dog can get confused and mix signals. I don't recommend playing with a dog if you have children in the house. Depending on the size of your dog and its energy levels and its age, that dog might want to try and play with a toddler and pull at its arm and things like this, which is not ideal in a family unit. Well, with any child, to be fair. Okay, so play fighting. You have to be responsible. Think of when it's a good time, all right? If you want to play fight a little bit with your dog, in the park is a good place. You know, with maybe like a tug of war game, something like that. Okay, dog fighting. So like I said, dogs will often splay their paws and bow to another dog to say they want to play, chase, and a little bit of rough and tumble. Now that is very, very healthy and very, very normal. I don't recommend stopping that behavior. If the dogs are happy, and if you know your dog, you can tell when it's happy. You can tell when it's having fun. All right? There's a real difference in the tone of its voice, in the tone of its bark and yelps and noises, and the heckles on its back. So we're getting to that now. So if a dog is wanting to fight with another dog, but to kill, that's a completely different story. You need to break it up ASAP by trying to grab the collars, but be aware you may get bitten. Dogs tend to go into a red zone and they don't know who's who, and they're just after the other dog for the fighting for their lives. All right? This is part of their DNA. They will get very, very, very vicious and angry and may not respond to your voice. So if you put your hand in there to grab the collar, you may get bitten because the dog's DNA and the dog's ancestry genes are kicking in. This is survival of the fittest and staying alive. All right? So just be aware of that. And the best way to get around this and the best way to avoid this is to have your dog well socialized. All right? Now, if your dog's socialized, it will be able to see when another dog is happy and wants to play, and it can tell when another dog doesn't want to play because it's either not balanced. And we'll get back onto this balanced in a minute. If another dog has its heckles up, that means like the bit of skin and hair and fur between its shoulders, and it's curling up its nose and ears often pricked up, they're not every single one of these telltale signs is exact, a bit like body language for a human, but you need to be aware of these things. If another dog is turning away or is confronting your dog or trying to get around the side of your dog ready to pounce on its neck, then you need to be aware of these signs and that your dog doesn't want to get involved in this. Dog fighting is a very bad and very negative thing for your dog's mental health. I do not recommend it at all. Do not allow it. Like I said, it's a very bad place to be. But socializing and play fighting is absolutely normal. So socializing a lot. Right. So when I talked about Cesar Millan, one of the criticisms people have with Cesar Millan is that he can be quite physical and hands-on when he's addressing a dog's vicious and bad behavior. So, for example, one way to prevent this, like I said, is to socialize and to train your dog from a younger age or from as soon as you have the dog. So, for example, if it's trying to bully another dog or trying to get on top of another dog's neck ready to fight, If you engage before that by able to get the dog's attention or pulling the dog off, or especially if it's on the lead, pulling it off, and then you put the dog on the floor and put your fingers like a dog would, like a mother dog would, into the shoulder of your dog and push down. And if you hold that there for a few moments, maybe a minute, sometimes longer, the dog will eventually put its head down to the side of the floor and submit. Now, this is a behavior you need to get comfortable with because you may be doing it a lot when you're training your dog to be social around other dogs. If you do not socialize your dog, then one day another bigger dog will tell your dog that's not appropriate and put your dog in its place. Now, this is natural in nature, all right? So if your dog is naturally a wolf, the young puppy wolves will be acting out their behaviors and they will get put in place by either the pack leader or their mother. Their mother and the pack leader or their father will pin them to the ground and make them submit. That is a natural dog behavior. All right? It is not abuse, it's not overtly aggression. That is natural dog behavior. It's a bit like when you see a cat picking up its kittens by the scruff of the neck. It's the same kind of thing, all right? That's not abuse. That's the way the kittens are designed to be picked up and carried by its mother. You can see that on many nature programs, even with jaguars and lions and things like this. So those cats are supposed to do that. It also makes them relax. And it's the same with dogs. A dog needs to be submitted by its pack leader when it's showing behaviors that are very unhealthy for the pack. Now, we're not talking about doing this when the dog doesn't sit on command. I'm talking about when a dog is getting ready to attack another dog, or when a dog is growling or barking at you or at your children. That is unacceptable behavior that needs to be addressed straight away. So, putting the dog down on its side, preferably quickly, and then your forefingers in like a claw motion into its shoulder, and let the dog know, quite firm, let the dog know that that is not acceptable, and you're acting as the pack leader, as the animal, all right? So you're not biting the dog, you're not kicking the dog, you're not hitting the dog. You're putting your four fingers, first finger, index finger, and ring finger, and thumb into the shoulder where the dog's lying down, into the muscle part of the shoulder, and you're holding it there until the dog puts his head on the floor. And then you can release the pressure gently and just hold your hand over the dog's face so it can't jump up, and say, no, I want the dog to be very calm and relaxed. Once the dog is calmed and relaxed, you can gently start stroking your dog to tell your dog this is okay. This is okay. This is a loving gesture way of telling your dog what is not appropriate, but you still love your dog. All right. I don't recommend any treats after this. Just to allow your dog to get up and brush itself off, metaphorically speaking. Okay, so this is something you need to become familiar with, especially if your dog is not happy around other dogs. You can't just avoid dogs for the rest of your life, because that's unhealthy for the dog. That is an unbalanced dog. And so, as I mentioned before, balance is when a dog has had lots of exercise. It has enough food, it feels safe, and it feels mentally exercised. So if you keep a dog in the crate and then you put it on a running machine, or you run it around a field and then you put it back in the crate, it doesn't have any mental stimulation and would go stir crazy. It'd go mad. So mental stimulation. You can get Kongs, you can get a food tray with lots of little things poking up to slow down the dog's food. ingesting, taken in, but a dog is naturally an animal. So if it eats fast, it eats fast. It may be sick, it may not. It's normal for a dog to scoff its food. I also recommend taking away the dog's food when it's finished, or if he's only half finished and he's walked away from it, or she has walked away from it, to take it away. Because the dog knows it's not there anytime it wants. The dog is not a king. The dog has the food when you give it to it. Okay, so balance. Balance is extremely important. Physically exercised, mentally exercised, socialized, allowed to sniff, and is calm. So going on then to balanced dog and exercise. It is recommended that you understand the amount of energy your dog has. You may have, I don't know, a greyhound and think that it's going to need lots and lots of walking. But typically, greyhound doesn't need a lot of walking. Or you may have a small Jack Russell and think that it only needs to go out once a day for 10 minutes in the morning. But the Jack Russell might have a lot of energy. So it doesn't matter the breed of dog you have. It depends on the amount of energy your dog has. Okay, so it's really recommended that you walk your dog a minimum of twice a day for about half an hour. But like I said, it depends on the energy of your dog. If your dog is elderly, it may only want a 10-minute walk. All right, you need to pick up on these energy levels and what behaviors are happening back at the house. After the walk, if the dog is going to the bed after the walk and goes for a sleep, then the dog is probably tired. But if the dog is still full of energy when it gets in, then you need a longer walk. I know in this day and age, we don't all have hours and hours to spend walking dogs. So there is another alternative, and that's paying somebody else to walk your dog. We don't all have lots and lots of money to do that either. So the final alternative is either a treadmill, like a running machine, or a walking machine, where you can put the speed very, very low and keep it flat. And then I used to put my dogs on a running machine. It took a couple of days for them to get used to it, and they didn't like it to start with, and they kept trying to get away. But once you train your dog to stand there and then use it and enjoy it, the dogs love it. So like 2 weeks later, you'd go over to the machine, you'd turn it on, beep, and boom, the dogs would run and they'd be straight on that machine because they really enjoyed getting that exercise out of their system. Now, you can see on YouTube many videos of people going up to the garage, opening the door, and there's a dog running machine. It has no motors, it's not electric. They just clamp the dog in and the dog's happy to run as much as it likes, as fast as it likes, in the safety of knowing that it's not going to fall off, fall over, or hurt itself. Much like a hamster will. The hamsters enjoy burning that energy. So, a dog will, if you don't have the energy or the time or the money, a dog training pad, training treadmill is a very good. And like I said, most dogs are scared of it to start with, but after a few days that they're clipped in and they feel safe, they really enjoy it. My dogs, after 3 days, didn't need to be clipped in. They would just go and get on it and they'd walk together. And I'd normally put it on for about half an hour on a slow speed, like 3 or 4 miles an hour. And they would do that, and then they would stop, I would stop it, and they would go run straight out in the back garden, have a wee, and be ready for their dinner. So that is another alternative. You must get out that energy, and you must burn that mental energy as well. So giving them tricks, treats, and other mental stimulation. I'm sure you can find plenty out there. Okay. Nervous dogs, over-energized, we talked about. Nervous dogs and socializing. So nervous dogs is often because the dog has said, no, I don't want to do it. And the owner said, oh, okay, we won't do it. And so they've never got past it. You can see on YouTube that sometimes a dog will not walk across a kitchen floor on lino because it slipped and fell over once. So depending on your your abilities and how comfortable you feel, you can, what they did on the YouTube video, is walk that dog backwards and forwards, forced it to go across it 100 times. And then eventually with treats, and then eventually with no treats, the dog was like, oh yeah, this is fine, I like it now, I don't mind it now. The dog will understand and get used to it. So to circumnavigate that, or to stop that from happening when you have a dog that's young, it's recommended that you put your dog on all different types of surfaces, whether it's the grass, the sand, the beach, the forest, carpet, tiles, water. So this is where I'm going to go into giving your dog lots of stimulation as it's young, you know, in stages. And so once the dog understands other people, it understands traffic, it understands children and banging and exhaust and noise and beeps and the streams and all these kind of stimulation is very, very good for the dog at gentle increments. You build it up and build it up. And that will give the dog the respect and the safe, to make it feel safe, and the respect and the trust in you that the dog is safe. All right? So it's very important that the dog feels safe. And you can do that by building up the stimulation bit by bit. So that's over-energized. Well, we talked about stimulation. So, sorry, socializing. So socializing your dog at the park with other dogs, first on the lead, and then over time, if the dog's behavior is good towards other dogs, then off the lead, especially only if you have good recall. You need to build up recall, again, with a long lead and a shorter lead, and whether it be with treats or squeaky toy or whatever. There's things that you need to build up, the fundamentals, before you go out into the real world, all right? Baby steps. You start off with not pulling, you move on to walking by heel very well, and then your long lead, and then no lead eventually. And it's only when you get to the high level that you can walk without a lead, maybe in a town centre or near busy roads. But don't do that until you're absolutely confident your dog will listen to you and stay by your side if you're going near a road. Right, there's one thing I don't want to forget, and that was, I've almost forgot it already. Socializing, real world situations, real world stimulations over time. Right, there's one more there for quiet time. Walking. As I was saying, walking, there's two different types of walking. There's the walking to heel, to show you, which is mentally difficult for your dog. So that's another mental exercise. Walking to heel, not sniffing every 5 seconds to sniff something. Walking to heel and getting exercise. So that could potentially be the one main thing you do that day is exercise your dog, is just to get rid of that energy, not stopping every 5 minutes, just go, 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 a hard walk to wear your dog out. And then the other kind of walk is where it's a very gentle walk, where it's not exercise, it's more of just entertainment and relaxation of walking maybe around a field or walking around somewhere that's a lot of things for your dog to sniff and stop and not worry about traffic or anything else. So there's two different kinds of walk. One is for burning that energy and you just go, and the other is for enjoyment, relaxing, sniffing, and taking your time. A lot of people try to combine these two, and I don't know if that's such a good idea, but there we go. It's really good to burn the dog's energy first, because then you would be able to let it off the lead if it's trained in that area. All right. Then, okay, one more thing we have here under different types of dogs and stimulation, things like quiet time. Quiet time. It's good to train your dog into enjoying its own quiet time. Maybe a little bed made up for the dog somewhere in the corner in the living room or under the stairs, or somewhere where it can get away a little bit, but also still come out and be part of the rest of the family. But building in quiet time, especially after a walk or something like that, or when the dog wants to get away from a child, that is perfect. That's a very good idea. And also building up quiet time and building up time away is really good to do to prevent separation anxiety. So when you first get the dog and you have a bit of quiet time, it's a good idea to go outside your door so the dog can't see you, just for 10 seconds. And then come back and not fuss the dog, just come back in, get on with what you're doing and come back out again. Pay no attention to the dog. And then build that up over a period of weeks, making it longer and longer and longer. So eventually, should you have to go to work all day and there's nobody to come around and pop in, then your dog is not going to have separation anxiety and howl all day or destroy the living room. So building that up from the beginning. Okay, quiet time. So we said about that. Never, ever, ever should you trust a dog alone with a small child. You could have that dog for 10 years or 5 years and think that that dog is the best dog in the world. But small children can be very unforgiving with their clambering and their wanting to touch and curiosity. So never ever leave a dog unsupervised with a small child, or any child for that matter, because the dog can one day say, I've had enough, get poked in the eye, stood on the tail, whatever, and snap back at your child. And nobody wants a child with a puncture through the cheek or through the face. All right, dogs are still animals, and they can do, you cannot guarantee what they're going to do. All right, so never leave your dog unsupervised with children. No excuses. Okay. Major problems that you may have with your dog often stem from smaller problems that have not been resolved, that have not been redressed. So maybe go through some of the basics with your dog and try and work out where these issues are coming from. 9 times out of 10, it's lack of exercise or lack of mental stimulation. That's what it is most of the time. Okay, so the best way to help your dog is with that physical exercise, mental stimulation, allowing your dog to be a dog and sniff. There's got to be a time when your dog needs to be a dog and sniff, play with other dogs, and have calm time at home. All right, that's the key. That's the key there. Those 5 things. All right, and as Cesar Millan said, I think he said, exercise, discipline, and then praise. Exercise, discipline, and then praise. But discipline, exercise can be walk around the block. Discipline can be, telling them about your boundaries, showing your boundaries, or having your boundaries. All right. And then praise can be just a cuddle. It's so simple when you know. All right. Watch Cesar Millan. It's really, really good stuff. All right. So let me know about your dog. Tell me, do you have any stories about your dog? Good stories, bad stories, what you're doing now with your dog. Let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation. So that's it for today. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and have fun learning English. If you don't have fun, you're not going to learn. Take care for now. Bye-bye.